You didn't change because you wanted to. You changed because staying the same wasn't getting attention anymore. So you adjusted. You rebranded. You became what worked. And somewhere in that process, you stopped knowing which version of you was real. In Cyberpunk 2077, Lizzy Wizzy is not just a pop star in Night City. Her real name is Elizabeth Weisenfurt. She rebuilt her entire body with chrome, a full body conversion. She turned her own death into a stage performance. In 2071, she poisoned herself live on stage. Her heart flatlined. The screens even showed it. Then the Ripper Docs replaced her organs mid-concert. And 5.5 hours later, she stood up and sang again. And that moment made her bigger than music. She wasn't just performing. She was selling transformation. And that's the mechanism. Not fame and not art, but transformation. Because once your audience expects reinvention, you can't stay still. And here's the first recognition. You didn't change because you were inspired. You changed because the version of you that people got used to stopped working. You adjusted at work. You adjusted in your relationships. And you adjusted in front of your friends. You told yourself you were growing. But if you're honest, you were optimizing. And it's not because you're fake, but because you realized that being consistent wasn't rewarded. Being interesting was. And Lizzy understood that before most people do. But here's where it tightens. See, Lizzy's boyfriend, Liam, he starts noticing something. He says she's changed since the full body conversion. He says that he's scared of her. So he makes a plan. He tries to create a backup of her personality, an Ingram copy. Not because he hates her, but because he doesn't trust that the new version of Lizzy is stable. Now think about that. When someone builds a backup of you, what they're really saying is, I don't know who you are anymore. And see, you didn't lose someone because of one argument. You lost them because they stopped recognizing you. You become sharper, more polished, maybe even more efficient. And somewhere along the way, the person who used to feel safe with you started feeling replaced. Not attacked, but replaced. Because it wasn't betrayal. It was distance. And you didn't even notice it when it happened. So Lizzy hires V to investigate Liam. And depending on your choice, you can lie to her and say he wasn't just cheating, or you can tell her the truth. And if you tell her the truth, that he was trying to copy her mind, she calls you later to meet up at the no-tell motel. And then you find Liam dead. She says it was an accident, but the body tells a different story. She strangled him slowly, broke his spine, and then she pivots, almost immediately. She starts thinking about how to spin it, how to feed the tragedy to the media, how to turn the moment into a narrative. Not because she's evil, but because that's the world that she lives in. Cause see, in Night City, attention is oxygen, and oxygen keeps you alive. And you didn't mean to turn your life into a performance, but you started managing perception. You curated what people saw. You controlled the story. You stayed on, even when something hurt, and even when something broke. And you processed it privately, and then you packaged it publicly. because staying relevant felt safer than being honest. And here's the mechanism underneath all of this. When your identity becomes your product, you can't afford to pause. You can't afford to regress. You can't afford to say, well, I don't know who I am right now. Because the machine doesn't reward uncertainty. It rewards consistency. And consistency over time turns into pressure. See, Lizzy didn't snap in a single moment. She converted her body. She converted her image. She converted her pain. And eventually, she converted her relationships. And that's what engineered identity does. It doesn't destroy you quickly. It replaces you gradually until one day someone says, I don't recognize you. And you don't know if they're wrong. And see, this isn't about Chrome. It's about adaptation. You can rebuild your career. You can reinvent your personality. You can become sharper, faster, and more impressive. But if every change is strategic, at what point do you stop being you? And Lizzy Wizzy calls herself a mirror of the future. But a mirror only reflects what's in front of it. And when all you reflect is what the world rewards, you stop asking who you were before the applause.